If you ask me what is the number one tool of really successful people, it's authenticity. They are true to themselves. The most successful people I've encountered ultimately are authentic. They don't get drifted or pulled into places where it's not them.
I'm on this show, Piers Morgan Uncensored, because ironically, I got censored.
I'm a news junkie. And it started when I was 6 or 7, which is just weird. I've had 4 kids myself. The idea of being 6 or 7 and being addicted to what's happening in the world, to news, to newspapers. I used to sit and read the Daily Mail. My parents used to get the mail. I used to read it from cover to cover when I was 6 or 7. So from a very early age, I had that kind of fascination and curiosity with what was happening. And I wanted to know what was happening and what to think about it. Opinions to me are the spice of life. If you don't have an opinion, there's something wrong with you, to me. You've got to care about what's happening in the world, and you've got to work out what you think about it. I wanted to be famous. I used to collect autographs. So I was a massive cricket fan in particular. Me and my brother used to go and stand outside pavilions at professional games and wait for players to come out and get Ian Botham's autograph, Viv Richards' autograph. And I used to practice mine. Then I began writing to world leaders. I've got all these letters from like Margaret Thatcher and Ted Heath when he was Prime Minister and world leaders around the world. I've got letters from Sir Donald Bradman, you know, a whole shaft and the greatest cricketer that ever lived. I used to just write to him and he used to write back. So I used to spend my entire time in weird correspondence with the world's most famous people and quietly thinking to myself, I'd love to be one of these people. It must be great. Center of attention, everyone looking at you, talking about you, good, bad, and ugly. So yeah, I mean, there are bits of paper at home that my mum's kept with just endless best wishes, Piers Morgan, best wishes. But I mean, it sounds ludicrous and extremely vain and presumptuous of me. But now I'm at the stage where, ironically, I've got to a stage where if in the old days, I had this level of recognition. I'd be signing autographs all the time, but nobody wants autographs anymore. Everyone wants a selfie. So when I finally got there, actually autographs had gone out of fashion. So I like to think that whether you love me or hate me, I do have a kind of brutal honesty about what I've set out to achieve, what I have achieved, what I failed at. I don't try and sugarcoat things, nor do I try and pretend I'm something I'm not. You know, you don't have to like me to respect the fact, I think, that I speak my mind. I give honest opinions about stuff. They're not always opinions people agree with, but I want them to be. I don't want people to agree with me necessarily. I want to stimulate debate and to hopefully get to some kind of truth, which is the most important thing in a world where truth is so difficult to find. I think my ability to be exactly the same whether I'm sitting with Nelson Mandela and the Queen or my old village mates comes entirely from that dual-pronged education I had, where I saw great privilege and no privilege and had to work out a way of thriving in both environments. The great thing you get as you get older, and I'm 57 now, you learn about life, good, bad, and ugly. You learn from mistakes. You learn from stuff that's gone bad in your life. You learn that actually you either give up or you keep pounding. Just keep pounding, it'll be fine. And it invariably is fine. There are all sorts of things that will come and test you, especially as you get older. You lose your first friend who dies when you're young. I can remember losing one of my closest friends before he was even 30. Devastating, absolutely devastating. But when it happens again and again with people that you care about, you realize that that's life. Life is what it is. You have one life and people die and people you love die and people you care about die. And you've got to learn to ride that wave of grief. And it's not mental illness. It's not anxiety. It's actually just something we all have to deal with. I'm a very rare voice in the public platform arena who's prepared to give a slightly different perspective on this stuff. And to me, there's room for both of us. But I went and studied the origin of the word woke and what it meant. By that definition, I'm woke. I believe in promoting campaigns against racial and social injustice. I've done it all my career as a newspaper editor and as a television broadcaster. You know, I've done that. It doesn't cut any ice, though, with the modern woke brigade, because they've stolen wokery and they've now used it as a new form of fascism, where they want to dictate to people how they lead their lives, what they can find funny, what movies are acceptable and not acceptable, what television shows they can enjoy, you know, what haircuts they can have that aren't inappropriate or cultural inappropriation. You can't celebrate any other culture anymore. It's all inappropriate. Every joke is inappropriate. Every comedian has to be cancelled. People can't host the Oscars if they told an inappropriate joke 10 years before. Yet Roman Polanski was given an Oscar after he raped a child. I mean, the sort of warped morality of all this is absolutely extraordinary to me. But at its centre, a woman came up to me in Kensington a few months ago after the Markle debacle, as I call it. She said, Mr. Morgan, I'm an 80-year-old Australian woman, but don't hold either of those things against me. And we had a laugh in the street. She said, the trouble with these wokies is they want to suck all the joy out of life. And I thought, what a brilliant way of describing it. And they've literally become the very fascists that they profess to hate most. And we have to counter it. And so my ambition with my new show, for example, is to cancel culture, to go back to what a democracy should be, to what society should be when it's supposedly democratic, where you and I can have a spirited debate about something and agree to disagree and go and have a beer. Or maybe we reach points of consensus, which is what used to happen. I've had ferocious arguments with my friends and family my entire life. The idea I would disown them, as you see happening all the time now with people, falling out with friends and family because they're so blindly self-righteous about their own opinion that they can't tolerate another opinion. The idea we have university campuses where only one certain type of voice is tolerated. At a university, a place you're supposed to learn all sorts of disparate views, hear all different voices and make your own mind up. Now, no. Unless they're woke speakers, no one else is allowed. If you're a conservative, which, by the way, many millions of people are in this country, in America, in Australia, if you're a conservative, you are the enemy to be crushed and destroyed and no platformed. Really? How do we get there? How could any student have their mind developed or evolved in an environment that cancels anybody for deviating from a woke agenda? It's madness. What democracy actually means, what free speech means. Free speech is not about you in an echo chamber all agreeing with each other. As Churchill said, free speech is about listening to views you just don't agree with, but allowing people to have different views. People love me or hate me, but that's part of being in the opinion business. If you don't want to be loved and hated, then you don't express opinions about anything. And that way, to me, madness lies. I'd much rather be, it's like the old, again, Churchill. He said that if you've got enemies, it means that at some stage in your life, you stood up for something that you believe in. Good. I always advise people when they lose a big job, take your time. Just go and clear your head. You'll get offered loads of things, but don't react to it. Let the dust settle.
The most successful acts that I ever saw on the British show and the American one were the ones which were truly authentic. And I'll give an example. A guy on the second season of America's Got Talent. It's actually quite a funny story behind this because Simon Cowell owned the rights to the show and he had the rights automatically to manage any of the winners of the show. And I think even the top 10 finalists. That was built into his contract. So the second season, first season, #1 summer show in America. So my life has changed dramatically. Second season, there are two standout early candidates for potential winners. One is a white reggae star who was fantastic, had a beautiful singing voice. And Simon literally was radiating the word ka-ching every time he heard him perform because he thought this guy is a money-making machine right in front of me. He looks the part, he sounds the part, amazing singer, carries himself great. But I was more drawn to the complete opposite, which was a guy called Terry Fator. And Terry Fator was a slightly overweight, permanently sweating, ill-fitting suited guy who had gone up and down America for 20 years in his van, earning $500 a week at most, doing a ventriloquist act. And he'd had an extraordinary turn of fortune shortly before he applied to be on America's Got Talent, where his act used to be that he would sing impressions himself. So he would sing Roy Orbison crying, for example, and then he would talk through puppets, a turtle, and so on. And he went to do one gig and two people turned up. There's a real lesson here for everyone. Two people turned up, but he still gave them the best act he could. And one of them turned out to be a talent agent. He said to him, have you ever tried doing the singing impressions through the puppets? Simple thing. It changed this guy's life. So Terry Fator went away and found he could actually throw his voice through the puppets as a singer better than he could do it from his own mouth. And at that point, his whole act changed. So he then applies to America's Got Talent, comes on stage, And I immediately find him very endearing as a personality, and I love his backstory. He's the ultimate kind of, this guy's been going 20 years, wanting the break. This is the moment, maybe. And as he progresses through the competition, and I keep supporting him, Simon's on my case. Stop being so supportive. He's going to win, and I can't make any money out of a ventriloquist. Go with the other guy. Go with the reggae singer. I was like, Simon, this guy's what this show's about. This ventriloquist. Anyway, he ends up winning, mainly because I'm so effusive in my support, and by then the American viewing public had viewed my opinion rather like the cowl on American Idol as the one that was most significant as far as they were concerned. So he wins. And Simon, in a fit of pique, says, I can't make any money out of him, so I'm not going to manage it. So the guy is left without a management. So he disappears. And a guy who used to work on the Rolling Stones management team and was now working on his own, heard about this guy, had a chat with him, and took him on, decided to manage him and just try his luck. And a few months later, literally 3 months later, Danny Gantz, all-round family entertainer in Las Vegas, one of the biggest stars on the Strip, drops dead. That's it. And the casino where he operated had to fill a massive gap in their schedule. They didn't have an all-round family entertainer. The Rolling Stones management guy who'd picked up Terry Fator recommends Terry Fator. Terry Fator does a 3-month trial. He sells out every show. Grandmothers love him, mothers love him, kids love him, dads love him. Everyone loves Terry Fator. He's now got 50 puppets. He's singing all these amazing songs through these crazy puppets. And on the back of the 3-month trial, he signs a 5-year, $100 million contract to be the biggest star on the Las Vegas Strip, which if Simon Cowell had kept the management rights, would have earned him $20 million. So if you want to really piss off Simon Cowell, just say, hey, Simon, how much money did you make out of that ventriloquist? So that story in many ways, it has a lot of useful things. The old don't judge a book by its cover. You know, if you took them purely on aesthetics, you go with the white reggae star every day. But there was something about this guy's personality and the uniqueness of his act, and the fact that he'd taken advice from someone who was one of only 2 people in an audience. So never give up. Always give everything, because you never know who's watching. All these lessons from the Terry Fator story. He's still on the Vegas Strip now. You go to, I think it's the Mirage or whatever he is. He has his own theater named after him. He signed another $100 million contract. He's the most successful breakout star in the history of any talent show ever. And that's his backstory.